How did the entire planet become so obese so quickly? Did everyone suddenly turn into a bunch of pigs and couch potatoes? Please take a moment to subscribe before we continue. Since there have been people, there has been obesity. It has easily existed for 50,000 years and existed before McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, and Coca-Cola. In some populations, obesity has been chosen due to evolutionary factors because those who can store energy are more likely to be able to endure times of famine. Obesity is a component of the human experience. Therefore, there is always a selection process in place, but none of those things can account for how, in 30 years, we have become horrifically sick. That's what an epidemic or a pandemic looks like. What exposure could have caused this? How do you explain the obese 6-month-old? That is how the plague and influenza appeared. In this country, the prevalence of obese 6-month-olds is on the rise. We can't brand a 6-month-old a glutton and sloth because they don't exercise or follow a diet. This transcends any consideration of individual accountability. We have believed that maintaining one's energy balance, eating the proper amount, and maintaining one's ideal weight is the individual's responsibility. But when something goes wrong, like the majority of people being overweight, we have to rethink that model and take a closer look at the external influences that are influencing obesity on a large scale in society. One phrase, one thought that has permeated society so deeply that it has become sacred, that it has become dogma, can sum up why we are in this epidemic: a calorie is a calorie. It was the first lesson dietitians learnt in nutrition college. You will put on weight if you eat more calories than you expend. You will lose weight if you eat less calories than you burn. The main line is that calories are calories, whether they come from cheesecake or veggies. If you eat too much and exercise too little, guess what happens? It is unsuccessful. A calorie is not a calorie, which is why it doesn't work. There is no dogma, there can be none. There is more than one component at play, all of them are important. If there is one important factor, it is undoubtedly the ecosystem in which we produce our food. Fast food, fast cooking, fast consumption, and also fast illness transmission. And we don't have time for food in our two-job, two-parent household. The largest problem we are now dealing with is this. It is because of all of our labor-saving technologies, including vehicles, computers, lawnmowers you can sit on rather than push, etc., that the industrial global diet has taken over the planet. Instead of increasing our time, all of those things have actually decreased it. This is a result of the significant improvements we have made to our society for the better. Are they, is the query. In the past 30 years, there have been many changes in the way we interact with food and our food supply. In addition to the approximately 24,000 new foods that are introduced to the market each year, there are also concerns about stress, sleep patterns, how we feed our animals, and soil minerals. There are several separate problems at hand. All of these contribute in some way to the obesity epidemic. The industrial global diet has replaced the Western diet, which we value and export to other countries due to its affordability, portability, lack of depreciation, as evidenced by the 10-year-old Twinkie, and excellent flavoring that encourages consumption. It is currently commonplace. If you have not subscribed yet, please take a moment to do so. We've experienced a convergence of the altered food environment, the restricted activity, such as no PE in schools, and chemicals that we're not entirely aware to what extent we're exposed. In the 1960s and 1970s, there was a significant battle in the food industry about whether to use fat or sugar. As a result, we were ordered as a nation to cut our fat consumption from 40% to 30%. Guess what, though? We succeeded and are present. However, the total amount of calories consumed, particularly in the form of sugar and carbohydrates, has skyrocketed. The 1970s directive or edict is largely responsible for the rise in obesity and the metabolic syndrome. Almost no packaged food can be purchased without including excessive amounts of additional sugar, which is harmful to your metabolism. Anything that says low fat or diet makes me leery, since you know they had to make up for it with a lot of extra sugars. They will reduce fat by a few grams, and increase carbohydrates by several grams, many of which are sugar, no fewer calories, the same number of calories. You can see where this is heading if sugar is the issue rather than fat. Additionally, the food supply has changed, making extremely appetizing items more readily available, allowing us to grab comfort food at any time of day or night and consume a few additional calories. When we discuss the illnesses associated with obesity, we mean type 2 diabetes, hypertension, lipid issues, or blood fats, if you like, heart disease. These four factors, the Big Four, combine to form the metabolic syndrome, as it was formerly known. the prevalence of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which now affects 1/3 of Americans, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which affects 10% of women, cancer of all types, and dementia are just a few examples of illnesses that fall under this category. The key is right here. Everyone believes that weight causes certain ailments down the line, yet nothing could be further from the truth. Although many diseases are contagious, obesity is also a sign of them. 20% of obese persons have cellular metabolisms that are entirely normal and will survive to normal ages. 40% of thin and normal weight individuals have these chronic metabolic illnesses and will pass away as a result. Nobody actually perishes from obesity. Instead, they perish from diseases that result from metabolic dysfunction. Thus, 60% of America is accounted for when you do the calculation. The majority is what is being discussed, not a small minority. Therefore, when you add up the costs of treating those 8 diseases, they account for 75% of healthcare spending worldwide, not just in America and not just in our country. In fact, the United Nations Secretary General declared in September 2011 that non-communicable diseases, specifically, chronic metabolic diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, cancer, and dementia, now pose a greater threat to the developing world, not the developed world, than did a nuclear war. This is a huge deal. This is really bizarre. The fact that obesity and diabetes are more of a problem in underdeveloped countries than cholera and other illnesses is just astounding. When you consider that, you really need to pause and realize that something is going on. That's all for now, but there will be more on this subject coming soon. Please subscribe to receive more content like this. Stay healthy,